Before I tell you this story, I need you to understand something. That second coffee cup? It wasn't meant for a living person. And what she whispered before walking away into the rain, it changed everything. By the end of this story, you'll understand why this single father did what he did every single morning for 3 years, and why a complete stranger's 3 words broke a cycle of grief that nearly destroyed him. If stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear might just change how you see love, loss, and the unexpected angels who appear exactly when we need them most. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end. The story begins. Marcus Chen arrived at the coffee shop at exactly 5:47 a.m., just like he did every morning, rain or shine. Today, the November rain fell in sheets against the windows of the small corner cafe, turning the pre-dawn darkness into a watercolor of smeared streetlights and lonely headlights passing by. The barista, Elena, didn't even ask for his order anymore. She simply nodded and began preparing 2 medium coffees, one black with 2 sugars, one with vanilla cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon. Marcus moved to his usual spot by the window, the one with the slightly wobbly table that nobody else ever wanted. He was 43 years old, with threads of gray beginning to show at his temples and permanent shadows under his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. His hands, calloused from his work as a carpenter, wrapped around the first coffee cup like it was the only warmth left in the world. The second cup sat untouched across from him. 3 years, Elena called out softly as she wiped down the counter. 3 years you've been coming in here, Marcus. Same time. Same order. Same table. Marcus looked up at her, offering a tired smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Creatures of habit, right? Elena wanted to say more. She wanted to ask about the second coffee that he would leave behind when he walked out, always placing it on the outdoor bench under the small awning, as if someone might come along and claim it. But she had learned long ago that some questions carried too much weight for casual conversation. Outside, the rain intensified. Marcus watched the droplets race down the window, each one following its own unpredictable path. His 7-year-old daughter, Lily, was sleeping at home, watched over by his elderly neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who had become something like a grandmother to the little girl. This early morning ritual was the only time Marcus had truly to himself, and to her. The bell above the door chimed, letting in a gust of cold air and a woman Marcus had never seen before. She was perhaps 35, with dark hair plastered to her face from the rain and clothes that hung on her thin frame like they belonged to someone larger. She stood in the doorway for a moment, looking around the empty cafe with the uncertain expression of someone who wasn't sure if she was welcome. Come in, Elena called out warmly. You'll catch your death standing there. What can I get you? The woman stepped inside, and Marcus noticed she was shivering. Not the light shiver of temporary cold, but the deep, bone-level trembling of someone who had been cold for a very long time. She started, then stopped. Her hand went to her pocket, came out empty. A flush of embarrassment crept across her face. Actually, I'm sorry. I thought I had, never mind. I'll just sit down, Marcus heard himself say. The word surprised him. He couldn't remember the last time he had voluntarily spoken to a stranger. Please. It's too cold out there. The woman looked at him with a mixture of wariness and desperation. In that moment, Marcus saw something in her eyes that he recognized, the look of someone standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to step back or to fall. I can't, she said quietly. I don't have any money. The coffee's already bought, Marcus said, nodding toward the untouched cup across from him. It would be a shame to waste it. Elena watched this exchange with wide eyes. In 3 years, she had never seen Marcus offer that second coffee to anyone. She had assumed it was some kind of ritual, a private memorial that he performed each morning in silence. The woman hesitated, then slowly made her way to Marcus's table. She sat down in the chair across from him, her hands immediately reaching for the warm cup. Thank you, she whispered, and her voice cracked on the second word. Marcus nodded, returning his gaze to the rain-streaked window. They sat in silence for several minutes, two strangers sharing space in the pre-dawn darkness, each carrying their own invisible burdens. "I'm supposed to be dead right now." The woman's words cut through the quiet like a knife. Marcus turned to look at her, really look at her for the first time. He saw the exhaustion etched into every line of her face, the way her hands trembled around the cup, the dark circles that mirrored his own. "I was walking to the bridge," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "The one over the river. I had it all planned out. I was going to wait until it was still dark enough that no one would see, still quiet enough that no one would try to stop me. But then it started raining, and I was so cold, and I saw the lights of this cafe and I just wanted to be warm one more time before." She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest, something that had been frozen for 3 years beginning to crack. He thought about his wife, Sarah. About the morning 3 years ago when he had found her note on the kitchen table, the one that apologized for everything she couldn't carry anymore, the one that begged him to be enough for Lily. He thought about how he had failed to see the signs, failed to understand the depth of her struggle, failed to be the person she needed him to be. For 3 years, he had been buying 2 coffees every morning, one for himself and one for the wife he wished he could talk to one more time, could hold one more time, could save one more time. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Grace," she said, and then laughed bitterly. "Ironic, right? Grace. Like I have any of that left. I'm Marcus. And that coffee you're drinking, it's been sitting across from me every morning for 3 years. I buy it for my wife. She died 3 years ago." Grace's eyes widened. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have, you should have said something." "No," Marcus interrupted gently. "You should have it. Because I think maybe she sent you here this morning." The rain continued to fall, but inside the warm cafe, something was beginning to change. Marcus found himself talking in a way he hadn't talked to anyone since Sarah's death. He told Grace about how he had met Sarah in college, how she had been the one to approach him at a party where he was standing alone in the corner, too shy to talk to anyone. He told her about their wedding, a small ceremony in her parents' backyard with fairy lights strung through the trees. He told her about Lily, about how Sarah had cried with joy when they found out she was pregnant, about how she had spent months decorating the nursery with hand-painted animals on the walls. And then, his voice dropping to barely a whisper, he told her about the depression that had crept into their lives so gradually that he almost didn't notice it happening. How Sarah had started sleeping more, smiling less. How she had begun to pull away from him and from Lily, not because she didn't love them but because she loved them too much, and believed, wrongly, that they would be better off without her. "I didn't see it," Marcus said, his eyes glistening. "I was so focused on work, on building our savings, on creating this future I thought we wanted. I didn't see that she was drowning right in front of me." Grace reached across the table and placed her hand over his. It was a small gesture, tentative, but it carried the weight of understanding that only those who have walked through similar darkness can offer. "It wasn't your fault," she said. Marcus shook his head. "Everyone says that. Her parents. My sister. The therapist I saw for a few months after. But I was her husband. I slept next to her every night. How could I not know?" "Because she didn't want you to know," Grace said quietly. "Because when you're in that place, when everything feels hopeless and dark and you're convinced that you're a burden to everyone who loves you, you get very good at hiding it. You smile when you're supposed to smile. You say the right things. You put on a mask because you don't want to drag anyone else into your darkness." Marcus stared at her. "How do you know that?" "Because that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. Hiding. Pretending. Convincing everyone around me that I'm fine while falling apart inside." Grace's voice broke. I lost my job 18 months ago. Then my apartment. My family, they tried to help at first, but I pushed them away because I was ashamed. I've been living in my car for the past 6 months, and last night the engine finally died. And I just thought, what's the point? What's the point of fighting so hard just to lose everything anyway? The cafe was beginning to brighten as the first gray light of dawn crept through the windows. Elena had quietly disappeared into the back, giving them privacy that she seemed to understand they needed. Marcus thought about his daughter, still sleeping peacefully at home. He thought about how he had spent 3 years going through the motions of living while feeling like he was already dead inside. He worked because he had to provide for Lily. He ate because his body required it. He bought 2 coffees every morning because it was the only way he could feel close to Sarah, even for a few minutes. But now, sitting across from this stranger, I think I am. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Victoria started saying hello to Marcus in the hallways. She stopped by his desk once to ask about a project he was working on, then stayed for 20 minutes discussing strategy. She invited him to a meeting that was 3 levels above his pay grade, introducing him as someone with excellent instincts. People noticed. People talked. Marcus didn't care. What he cared about was the text message Victoria sent him at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday: "He was outside my building tonight. Security made him leave, but I can't stop shaking." What he cared about was driving across town to sit with her in her apartment, drinking tea and talking about everything except Richard Chen. What he cared about was learning that Victoria Whitmore, the most intimidating woman he'd ever met, was terrified of thunderstorms because of a childhood memory. That she had wanted to be a veterinarian before her father pushed her into business. That she hadn't taken a real vacation in 6 years. "Why are you doing this?" Victoria asked one night, when they were sitting on her balcony watching the city lights. "Doing what?" "This. Being here. Listening to me." She turned to look at him. "I'm not easy to be around. I know that. I've been told that my whole life." Marcus thought about his answer carefully. "When Sarah left, I had nobody. My parents are gone. My sister lives across the country. I had a 2-year-old daughter and no idea how to survive. And I kept thinking, if just one person would show up, if just one person would sit with me and tell me it was going to be okay, maybe I could make it through." Victoria was silent. "Nobody showed up," Marcus continued. "I made it through anyway, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done. So when I see someone who's struggling, someone who needs a person to sit with them, I show up. Because I know what it's like when no one does." Victoria reached out and took his hand. It was the first time she had initiated contact since that day in the park. "Thank you," she whispered. The confrontation with Richard happened on a Friday evening. Marcus had picked up Lily from daycare and stopped by Victoria's office to drop off some files she'd requested. Lily was chattering about her day, holding Marcus's hand, when they stepped out of the building. Richard was waiting on the sidewalk. "Victoria," he said, spotting her walking out behind Marcus. "We need to talk." Victoria froze. Marcus saw it happen, saw the way her face went pale, saw the way her hands started to tremble. "She doesn't want to talk to you," Marcus said, stepping between them. Richard's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you? That's not your concern. What is your concern is the restraining order that's going to land in your lap next week. Victoria has enough documented incidents now. Your lawyer can explain the rest." This was a bluff. Marcus had no idea if Victoria had enough for a restraining order. But he said it with absolute certainty, the way he'd learned to say things during his worst moments as a single father. "Fake it until you make it. Fake it until it becomes real." Richard's jaw tightened. He took a step forward. Lily tugged on Marcus's hand. "Daddy, that man looks mean." Something about that, about a child's simple observation, seemed to break the moment. Richard looked at Lily, then at Marcus, then at Victoria. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes," Victoria replied, and her voice was steady now, stronger. "It is." Richard walked away. They waited until he turned the corner before anyone moved. Victoria crouched down to Lily's level. "That was a very brave thing you said, sweetheart. Are you okay?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Is he going to come back?" "I don't think so. Your daddy scared him away." Lily looked up at Marcus with new appreciation. "Daddy's really brave too. He kills the spiders in our apartment even though they're super gross." Victoria laughed. It was the first genuine laugh Marcus had heard from her, unguarded and warm. "That is extremely brave." The restraining order went through 2 weeks later. Richard Chen violated it within a month and ended up with 30 days in jail. After that, he disappeared. Later, Victoria learned he had moved to another state, chasing some new business venture, leaving her to finally live in peace. But by then, everything had changed. Marcus was promoted 3 times in 18 months. Victoria claimed it was merit, but everyone knew the truth. He was brilliant at his job, yes, but he also had the CEO's trust in ways that went beyond professional respect. Their relationship evolved slowly, carefully. Neither of them wanted to rush. They had both been burned by love before, both knew how quickly things could fall apart. So they took their time. Dinners that turned into long conversations. Weekends at the park with Lily. Quiet evenings reading on opposite ends of Victoria's couch. Lily adored Victoria. "She's really pretty," she told Marcus one night, "but not just on her face. She's pretty on the inside too. Like a princess who knows how to do math." Marcus couldn't argue with that assessment. It was a year and a half after that day in the park when Victoria brought up the future. "I've never wanted children," she said. They were in Marcus's apartment, having just put Lily to bed. "Richard wanted them, and I always said no. I thought I wasn't capable of that kind of love." Marcus waited. "But Lily," Victoria continued, and her voice cracked slightly. "Marcus, I would do anything for that little girl. I think about her constantly. I want to go to her school plays. I want to help her with her homework. I want to be there when she grows up." "That sounds like you want to be her mom," Marcus said softly. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Is that insane? I'm not her mom. I could never replace." "Sarah wasn't her mom," Marcus interrupted gently. "Sarah gave birth to her, but she wasn't her mom. A mom is someone who shows up. A mom is someone who stays." Victoria took a shaky breath. "I want to stay, Marcus. I want to stay with both of you. Then stay." The proposal happened 6 months later, on a Saturday afternoon at Riverside Park. Lily was in on the plan. She was supposed to distract Victoria while Marcus set up the picnic basket with the ring hidden inside. Instead, Lily got too excited and yelled, "Miss Victoria, Daddy's going to ask you to marry us." Victoria laughed so hard she cried. Marcus pretended to be exasperated but couldn't stop smiling. He got down on one knee anyway, pulled out the ring, and asked the question properly. "Will you marry us, Victoria Whitmore? Will you be my wife and Lily's mom?" Victoria said yes. Lily cheered. The ducks quacked in what Marcus chose to interpret as approval. Their wedding was small. 50 people in a garden venue, with string lights and flowers and a jazz quartet. Marcus's sister flew in from California with her husband and 2 kids. Victoria's mother, a formidable woman who had initially been skeptical of the single father from accounting, sat in the front row and cried happy tears. Victoria wore white. Marcus wore a suit he couldn't really afford until Victoria pointed out that as CEO, she made the budget decisions, and she had decided the suit was a company expense. He didn't argue. Lily was the flower girl. She took the job extremely seriously, walking down the aisle with military precision, counting each petal she dropped. When Marcus saw Victoria walking toward him, something shifted in his chest. 3 years ago, he had been alone. 3 years ago, he had been convinced that love was something that happened to other people, something he had tried once and failed at. 3 years ago, he had been surviving. Now he was living. Really, truly living. The vows were simple. Victoria spoke first. Marcus, before I met you, I thought strength meant never needing anyone. I thought power meant standing alone. You showed me that real strength is letting someone in. Real power is being vulnerable enough to love and be loved. You didn't rescue me. You reminded me how to rescue myself. And I am going to spend the rest of my life being grateful for that afternoon in the park, when you held a stranger in your arms and told her you had her. Marcus had to take a moment before he could speak. His throat was tight with emotion. Victoria, I've spent a lot of my life believing that I wasn't enough. Not enough for my parents. Not enough for my first wife. Not enough to give Lily the life she deserved. Then you showed up on my park bench, terrified and trembling, and you trusted me anyway. You saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. You made me believe that I was enough. That we were enough. And now, every day, I wake up and I'm amazed that I get to do this life with you. Lily, who had been fidgeting throughout the ceremony, chose this moment to announce, "Okay, you can kiss now, because I'm getting really hungry and the cake looks really good." Everyone laughed. Marcus and Victoria kissed. And somewhere, in whatever cosmic accounting system keeps track of human joy, a balance was restored. 3 years later, Victoria sat on a bench at Riverside Park, watching 2 children play on the swings. Lily was 8 now, tall for her age, still stubborn, still brilliant. And beside her was 2-year-old James, with his father's eyes and his mother's determination. Marcus dropped down beside Victoria, handing her a coffee. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "That day. The day I sat on your lap." Marcus smiled. "The most terrifying and confusing moment of my professional career. I was so scared," Victoria admitted. "Not just of Ree.